everybody, and welcome along to episode 3 of The Phoenix Way. I'm your host and all-time leading goal scorer and one of the greatest signings in Luton Phoenix history, Mr. Faisal Khan. And I'm delighted to be joined by a legend from Luton Phoenix, the guy that found the football club, the guy that spent many hours in my house trying to get me to sign on the dotted line to play for Luton Phoenix, Mr. Kamrul Haque. Cams, how you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks.
And I'm also delighted and privileged to be joined all the way from the 1892 Reds podcast, the founder of the 1892 Reds podcast, Mr. Luke Burns. Luke, thank you very much for taking your time out to join us today.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks for letting me come onto the show. Really looking forward to it.
Not a problem, Luke. I'm always happy to have as many people on, especially those who follow the same football team as myself and Cam's, which is Liverpool Football Club, the greatest football club on earth. Before we get started, I just want to remind the viewers out there, if they haven't already, to make sure they subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on all the audio platforms such as Spotify and Pocket Cast and iTunes as well. And we'll be sharing the links in the description for the 1892 Reds podcast. So make sure you check out their content, a brilliant football channel, delivering some fantastic content. A channel that's going to be growing endlessly throughout next season. They put up some really good stuff. And as I mentioned at the start of the episode, they're diehard Liverpool fans like myself and Cam. So for any of you Liverpool fans out there, give them a subscribe. If you don't like Liverpool, give them a subscribe either way. Got a lot to talk about today because we will be discussing the major up-and-coming tournament, which is Euro 2020, or should I say Euro 2021, which kicks off this Friday evening in Rome. The opening game is obviously on June the 11th between Turkey versus Italy at the Stadio Olimpico. 1 month of drama, 1 month of highs, 1 month of lows, a month of heartache, and maybe a month of success. And maybe finally it might actually come home. That's right. Us three will be following England. We'll be hoping England can end the long pain of hurt and misery. But before we talk about England, we obviously have to discuss the rest of the tournament. I want to get your guys' thoughts on the European Championships being hosted around Europe this time. The countries that are hosting the games are Azerbaijan, Denmark, England, Germany, Hungary, Italy, Holland, Romania, Russia, Scotland, and Spain. Of course, the final is to take place at Wembley Stadium. But guys, your thoughts on this tournament being hosted around Europe?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because I think 2 or 3 years ago when how long ago it was when the Euros was announced, it was going to be all around Europe. I think everyone was quite excited by it. I think everyone was, it's going to be played amongst different grounds, different places around Europe. I think everyone was excited about it, but I think, of course, we know with COVID and, it's become quite difficult, to be honest, whether or not, it's a good thing or not. As England fans, we all know that if we was told that we could host a tournament tomorrow, we could. We've got the stadiums, we've got the hotels, like for teams, we've got the training bases, we've got everything that we need. As a fan, I personally, I don't disagree with the idea, but I love the idea of fact of, when you play major tournaments, going to a country to play that tournament is what it's all about. Like we've had World Cups in places like Brazil, South Africa, loads of different countries around Europe as well. And I think going to an actual country to play a major tournament is probably what it's all about. So, it's going to be great as a spectacle, like for the Euros to be all around Europe, all these other countries. But I think at the moment with the current situation with COVID, I think it's very, very difficult. And how they're going to get this over this month with, you're going to have some countries that are on red lists. Like if, for example, if England have to go to France, like it's going to cause a lot of problems. It's just there's going to be lots of pros and cons about it. But for me, I personally feel that the one country is the best way for a major tournament.
100%. I couldn't agree more with exactly what you just said there, Luke. Because, you know what, it's not because obviously there's more than one country, it's the fact that due to COVID, we don't even know if we're going to get full capacity at Wembley for the actual final, a major tournament like the European Championships. I know we were lucky to have, 8 to 10,000 fans for the Champions League final, but those type of games, you definitely want a full capacity. Cams, you always like to fancy yourself as a bit of a politics guy. What's your thoughts on the European Championships being hosted around Europe this time around?
You know what? I would have preferred it in one country, but actually with COVID, it's tough because there's pros and cons to it. And obviously, I think England are playing most of their games at home, right? So I think most of the host nations are doing so. So there's less traveling for the fans as well. But it's just the away fans it affects more than anything else. But overall, yeah, I would prefer it to be in one country. But it would have been, without COVID, it could have been exciting having it all over Europe. It does give some of the other countries an opportunity to, show off stadiums and, bring football to those countries a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you on that point. It is something different. We're seeing, major competitions such as, the Champions League being formatted from 32 teams to 36 teams. We're seeing the Europa League conference. So I think this is obviously another idea that UEFA brought into play where the tournament does get hosted. But I'd have to sort of side with Luke on this one because of COVID. It is a big worry, but majority of the host nations will be playing their games in their own countries. But look, I mean, we've not really, number one, being Liverpool fans, we've not enjoyed football the last season. And I don't think anyone's enjoyed much football. I think the last few weeks of last season were pretty much the most enjoyable times because you had fans back in attendance. So hopefully, we can get a good tournament. We can all get excited and, we'll be rooting for England. But listen, it's a month of football. You've got the best players throughout Europe playing each other. There could be some surprises. There's going to be a lot of drama. There's going to be a lot of heartache as well. But I, for one, am looking forward to it. And the fact that there are fans back in attendance, maybe not at full capacities, kind of does give me that little bit more of extra excitement. Let's talk about the actual tournament itself, in terms of who are the favourites, who we're going to be picking to win the tournament. 24 teams that got there because they deserve to be there. The defending champions are Cristiano Ronaldo and his Portuguese side. Shocked everyone by winning Euro 2016. But I want to get your guys' opinion on this tournament. Would you say the defending champions are the strongest side because of how well they've grown, the players that they've, nurtured over the last few years, such as Diego Jota, Ruben Neves, Bruno Fernandes? Or can you see someone like France, who won the World Cup in 2018, having too much strength and depth and winning this tournament?
It's a good point you made, to be honest. I think, when Portugal won the Euros, we all expected France to win that European final. I don't think many people expected Portugal to win that game, especially when Ronaldo came off injured early on in that game. I think France, for me, will probably be the pre-tournament favourites. Winning that World Cup 3 years ago, and obviously, the depth that they've got in their squads. They've effectively got three great teams that they could put out at any point. I do see France as a little bit as a similarity towards like a Portugal. They lost that Euro final, and then they've just sort of built, as they've won the World Cup, they've built. Portugal, they won the Euros, they won the Nations League as well, which was a good achievement for them. Depending what people think of the Nations League, it's like a glorified friendly for me. But apart from that, it's you've got to give credit to these countries. I think Portugal are definitely going to be one of the favourites. They have to be defending champions. The list of players that they've got, as you said, like Diego Jota, as we all know as Liverpool fans, Bruno Fernandes, as we all like to call him. We've got, Ruben Diaz, who's just one of the players of the season. They've got an excellent team there. So they're going to be very hard to beat. But they're in a tough group. They've got France in their group. They've got Germany in their group. So it's not going to be easy to win it. But I think those two would probably be up there as pre-tournament favourites. You never rule out Germany. I mean, Germany are a glorified. They are such a tournament team. They could be so poor in friendlies and like in other games, but in the tournaments they know how to step up. It's pretty opposite to us, really. We do well in the qualifiers, but then apart from the World Cup 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we had a decent route to the semi-final, but we usually seem to struggle in the big games. So hopefully that doesn't happen to us.
It's good, Luke, that you mentioned about the Germans, because obviously this is the last tournament that will be managed by Joachim Löw. So could they be set for a fairy tale ending? Obviously, we hope not. But they are such a brilliant team, especially in tournaments. All right, given what happened a few years ago in Russia, they got knocked out in the group stages as defending champions. But you can never write off the Germans. And if anyone goes to penalties against Germany, you're better off just switching the TV on and just saying, yep, that's Germany through to the next round. Cams, obviously the French are a lot of people's favourites. Looking at some of the sides in the tournament, who can challenge the French in this tournament?
I mean, there's obviously a few teams that can challenge them. As you mentioned, they've got a good opportunity. Ronaldo coming to end of his career, but still got it in him for at least this tournament and maybe more. Belgium are a good shout because obviously they've got Lukaku, Hazard. Tielemans is a good. If he's on form, you know, it could really shape their tournament. I think the thing with France, they, as you mentioned, they've got strength and depth in their squad. It's good that they've got Benzema back for this tournament. That will be interesting to see how he gets on. And obviously, you've got the likes of all their fullbacks. Vigne's going to get some game time and stuff. So I think they are the favourites for me as well. But you can never rule out the likes of Germany, Spain, and Belgium themselves. The group, obviously, the group of death in this occasion is obviously.
Yeah, you got Germany, France, and Portugal in the same group.
France and Germany in that group, and that's going to be a tough group. So I feel as though whoever comes out of that group, one of those two teams will win it, and France will, I think, surely come out of that group, and it's about who comes out of Germany and Portugal for the other spot.
I mean, either way, you look at that group of death, Group F, and you kind of almost feel a bit sorry for Hungary. But I remember in the European Championships in 2016, they were actually a half a decent team. They got to the round of 16 and then they got turned over by Belgium. But that is definitely a tough group. I mean, we all know France have got a tremendous squad. Germany have got great history in competitions, and Portugal are defending champions. But it is a big ask just to get out of a group like that. But, you know, what I like about the new format of the European Championships, since it's gone from 16 teams to 24 teams, that it's the 4 best third place teams that also go on into the knockout stages. So, you know, even 3 points might get it done. And a ridiculous stat is the Portugal, obviously, when they won Euro 2016, didn't win a single game in 90 minutes up until the semi-finals. They drew all their 3 group games, ran the 16 quarterfinals, won on penalties, and then they beat Wales in 90 minutes, and then they beat France in extra time. So, you know, I mean, that just goes to show, you know, they've got that mentality where they don't even need to be that good, and they're going to win a tournament. And I believe, as Luke said, they did it without Ronaldo for at least 85 minutes in the final against France. But no, listen, for me, I'm not too worried about Spain, Italy. I looked at the Dutch squad before the Van Dijk and the Van de Beek injuries, and I really like to look at their team. But because they've lost 2 quality talisman players, you know, Van Dijk and Van de Beek, I think that's going to play a massive part on how they progress in this tournament. You know, we being Liverpool fans, we've seen how much it affected us losing Van Dijk, and it wasn't just his quality we missed his presence on the pitch. That's what I felt we missed the most throughout last season. So that's a massive gap to fill for the Dutch. I'm glad they're back in the tournament. You know, they weren't in the last 2 major tournaments, so it's good to have them back. Italy also back in the tournament as well. You know, don't forget Croatia, you know, World Cup finalists. They've actually got a half-decent squad as well. And Spain, you know, who were dominant from 2008 to 2012. You know, they won 3 tournaments in a row. So, listen, you know, it's a tournament. You don't need to be at your greatest to win a tournament. Anyone can win it. I just can't see nobody beating the French. I really, really can't see nobody beating France. But let's talk a bit about the team will be rooting for. England, in Group D, they've got 3 games at home at Wembley, and they could potentially be playing the semis and the finals in their home turf. They've got Croatia, Scotland, and Czech Republic. How far do England go in this tournament, given the talent that they've got in that squad right now?
I mean, I think it's probably the best squad that we can get at the moment. I mean, we've had some difficulties throughout the season. I mean, we spoke about injuries about Van Dijk. I mean, we're missing Joe Gomez massively, and I think Joe Gomez would have started for England, to be fair. But I do think that we've picked a good squad that's, you know, good enough to, for me, win the group. I think Croatia is definitely going to be a tough game to open up. I mean, because we could be going into that, if we lose against Croatia, which obviously we don't want, but we have to, you know, think that we can win this game, but we can also lose this game. We don't want to be going into that Scotland game needing to win, because for me that's going to be our toughest game, playing Scotland, because it's not. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think they're probably the weakest team in the group, but it's England versus Scotland. It's literally like, you know, it's a massive right. It's like a massive rivalry, isn't it?
It's like Pakistan versus India in the cricket.
Honestly, like, you don't know what to expect in that game. I mean, it's going to be a very, very feisty game. So it's very important that England get off on the right start, you know, against Croatia, get the 3 points, get on to you know, that second game. And as you said, like, we've got home advantage for the 3 games in the group, which is so important for us. So that might have a bit of nerves for Scotland. I just wanted to pick up, you said about, you know, like Portugal, they didn't win a game until the semi-final, like in 90 minutes. I remember the World Cup when Spain won it. They lost their first game in the group
to Switzerland in 2010, yeah.
And the worst one, which I saw, was New Zealand. They drew all 3 games and went out. So it's just like, it's crazy.
It's crazy, yeah.
Football works.
It is. With football tournament, you don't need to be great. You just need to know how to get over the finishing line. And I mean, you know, I might get a bit of stick for this, but I've always said if England had someone like a Rafa Benitez, I think they'd go very far in tournaments, because, you know, when he managed, and again, we're kind of comparing it to Liverpool, but you can't help it when you've got 3 Liverpool fans on the podcast. When you've got a manager like Rafa Benitez, who we had for 5 years, tactically set up Liverpool the way he did in the Champions League, that's the type of manager you might want in the tournament. But having said that, I feel that England's problems over the last few tournaments is they've kind of always relied on that one player. But as in this squad, you've got 3 players that for me are just going to be absolute world beaters within the next 18 months, 2 years. And that is Jack Grealish, Phil Foden, and Mason Mount. And we're talking about 3 quality footballers. You know, 2 of them are just broke through in their first season. You know, Mason Mount's a Champions League winner, and Phil Foden's went and won a Premier League. You know, they're going to be absolutely buzzing going into this tournament. And I believe there is quality all round. Having said that, I think England's biggest worry is at the back. The best right back in the world, I don't care what anyone says, is unfortunately had to pull out squad, Trent Alexander-Arnold. And the best English centre-back in Joe Gomez is not there due to injury. And the second best centre-back that England have got, Harry Maguire, I don't think will even feature in this tournament, because it doesn't look as if he's recovered from injury. But Cams, you obviously, as we mentioned, no Gomez, no Trent, no Harry Maguire. Do those injuries become the reason why England aren't successful at this tournament, or do you think there's enough quality in this squad to go a long way?
I think in the past, England have always had injuries at major tournaments, and it's always been the reason why we didn't do well. On this occasion, I actually think it's down to Southgate how well we do. If he gives a chance to the players like Mount, as you mentioned, Mount, Foden and Grealish, I think that should be enough to get us goals. And then it's down to what happens at the back. Now, Trent is obviously a big loss, but we have got good enough backups in that position. But Gomez, you can't replace. So yes, it's the centre-back position that we are probably most struggling with. But I would like to see the experience mixed up with youth in the team, and not just go for too much experience. Because the players of youth, they're the ones, you know, like Mount and Foden, they need to be starting. And I think if they start, we've got a better chance to go a longer way in the tournament, especially Grealish. For me, he is England's most pivotal player.
I've said that Jack Grealish is our best answer to Paul Gascoigne, 100%. He's just got that swagger about him, you know. He's got the look about him, you know, and everyone knows he's a great footballer. I think he's the one player that could be our talisman. But you know, going forward, I don't think there's an issue with England. I just look at the back. I'm not filled with confidence with Tyrone Mings. Connor Cody's a half decent defender. Is he on the same level as Joe Gomez and Harry Maguire? No. I just think the centre-back pairing is going to be a big worry. You know, Ben White's had a good season, but you know, it's a big ask to throw a young player like Ben White into a major tournament, you know, with a lot of pressure on. And I think now we're actually going to find out just how much of a good gaffer Gareth Southgate is, because I believe a few years ago, going into the World Cup, there was no, you know, expectation. There was no pressure making the semi-finals. Now there is that pressure, especially with all the talent that's come through. Luke, Cams, how far do England go in this tournament?
I mean, I would say after you.
No. So I mean, the World Cup was great to get to the semi-final, but let's be real. I mean, we had an easier route to get there. I mean, I remember that game against Belgium when we played them and lost 1-0, and we was disappointed that we lost 1-0. Like, it was probably the best thing that happened to us because of the route. But I mean, over this tournament, as we just mentioned, like the attacking threat that we've got, you know, let's not forget, like, apart from those three that we've mentioned, we've got the top goal scorer in the Premier League, Harry Kane. We've got, you know, Jadon Sancho, who's done excellent at Dortmund. I mean, Raheem Sterling, he's obviously been under criticism, but he's a very good attacking player in our squad. Marcus Rashford. It's going to be a very, very tough tournament to probably think how we'll do, but I'm hoping we get at least to the semi-final. I mean, if we get to a semi-final, for me, it's again be disappointing if we lost at that stage. But I think just looking at the progression over the last 3 to 4 years, if we can get to another major semi-final, I think that'd be a good achievement for England. And I think moving on to that World Cup in 2022, you know, that's where we could possibly aim to, you know, maybe go a bit further. But if we get to the semi-final, I think it'd be a good achievement. So I'd probably say semi-final for England.
Cams, where do England go for you in this tournament? I mean, Luke says semi-finals. I'm gonna say, because I believe they'll win the group, but I think they get knocked out in the round of 16 because of who they could possibly play. And I'm not being a typical, you know, England fan, as some people like to say. I just feel that there's a lot of expectation, and I think that's where England, you know, go wrong when we put too much expectation on them. You know, we're potentially. I mean, I believe someone said to me today that England are the bookies' favourites to win the tournament. You can't put. Well, I mean, these bookies cannot be putting England ahead of France, Germany, you know, even Portugal. I personally think that. I just think those injuries at the back are going to cost England, and I just think round of 16 for me, and I think they'd be really lucky if they go any further. But we'll know a lot more when they play Croatia on Sunday. Cams, what's your thoughts? How far do England go in Euro 2020?
Obviously, it depends on. I think they'll get out of the group stage. Depends on who they play. So, I mean, I'm going to say quarterfinals. But again, if we had an easy run in like we did in the World Cup, then, you know, you could even get to the semis, or but then you could play maybe France in the in the round of 16 and get knocked out. But just off of thingy, I would say maybe in the quarterfinals.
Well, listen, like I said, there's a lot of drama to be expected over these next 4 weeks. Let's just hope we don't go to penalties. I mean, I know we're on a good run. We've won 2 in a row on penalties. I know Jordan Pickford has ended that long wait for us to win a penalty shootout. But listen, these things never last for long. But fingers crossed England can have a good tournament. Now, in every tournament, you always get an underdog that has a great run, but it does unfortunately come to an end at some point. There's quite a few underdogs going into this tournament, such as North Macedonia, Finland, you know, their first ever tournaments. Hungary, who made the round of 16 in the last European Championships. Now, every tournament, as I said, has a major underdog that does very well. And you enjoy it for a little while, and then you sort of think to yourself, okay, now this run has got to come to an end. Me personally, I think Wales are going to have another good tournament. Gareth Bale's just a different player when he plays for Wales, and I've always said that one player can make a team tick. I thought he done really well towards the end of last season whilst being on loan at Spurs. I think he's going to have a good tournament. I think Wales are going to go quite far as well. Their group for me, Group A, Turkey, Italy and Switzerland is a decent group for them. I think they'll qualify from that group, and I think they'll have another good tournament. Luke, who have you got as a dark horses to have a very good tournament this time around?
I think I look at the teams and I think Wales have, as you said, like they're. I mean, let's not forget what they did in Euro 2016.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, I mean, we talk about underdogs. I mean, we cannot forget Iceland. You know, like what they did to us as well, as heartbreaking as that was. But there you go. And it's literally being used all over England as a celebration. That's just how good the Iceland were. But you know what? I think a lot. I mean, including myself, I literally not forgotten about them, but like where we've got these teams, like we talk about France, Portugal, Spain, etc. I think Italy. I think for me, a lot of people forget about how good Italy are, but I think they're going to be a team to look out for in the tournament. But if I was to pick someone else that maybe, you know, that we could probably not, maybe Turkey, possibly.
Yeah.
I think Turkey got some good young players. I mean, they've got a decent centre-back partnership with Kabak and Soyuncu. Is it Yilmaz they've got up front, the experienced striker?
Yilmaz.
I mean, they've got, is it the guy, is it Under from Leicester?
Cengiz Under.
I think they've got some, you know, they've got some good players in their team that we've all seen. And I think Turkey's they're a very dangerous side to play against for me. I mean, we had loads of key battles with them in previous European Championships in 2004 and all these other tournaments that we played. And I think Turkey will be definitely a team to watch out for in this Euros. Really
good side, Turkey. Semi-finalists in Euro 2008. They were the team that scored a lot of late goals. So, you know, don't take your eye off Turkey if they're 1-0 down with a few minutes to play. Cams, who are your dark horses for this tournament? Which team is the world not expecting to go far, but does go far in your opinion?
I think Czech Republic actually might do a bit better than we all expect. If Souček has a season like he did in the Premier League, then that could definitely, if he scores some goals, it could definitely have an effect on the finish.
Yeah, I mean,
my other team was Turkey, so yeah.
I mean, you know, like I said, there's a lot to look forward to in this tournament, and of course, you've got some, you know, first timers such as North Macedonia and of course Finland that are in this tournament. You know, it's good to see these little nations in the tournament, and obviously it's going to be good to see how far they can go. And one thing I like about these type of tournaments is anyone who has a good tournament gets snapped up by one of the big teams. So hopefully, you know, Michael Edwards and John Henry are going to be watching a lot of this tournament, because definitely Liverpool could do with some squad players and some good players to walk into the starting 11 as well. As with every tournament, there's always one guy that stands out. There's always one guy that takes home the golden boot. We'll be hoping it's Harry Kane as well. He did it in Russia a few years ago. There's obviously your normal faces, Ronaldo, Mbappe, these type of players. Potentially Ronaldo's last tournament. He's done it all in football, hasn't he? He's just a phenomenal athlete. You know, for me, I'll pick him over Messi. I just think because he's done it with club and country, and he's done it in more than one league. Kylian Mbappe could potentially be seen as the next heir to the throne. Obviously, you throw Harry Kane in that mix as well. You know, there's great players like De Bruyne as well. Bruno Fernandes, as Luke mentioned. You know, there's some real good players to look out for in this tournament. I personally think Mbappe is going to be the star of this tournament. I just think he's come on leaps and bounds. I think last season he went that extra level with the amount of goals he scored. I think he's gone a level above Neymar at PSG. Obviously, those two are always getting compared. It's a shame Haaland is not in this competition. I'd love to have seen Haaland qualify with Norway, but unfortunately they didn't. Who do you guys have winning the Golden Boot? Who's going to shine up this tournament for you?
I personally think, again, as you said, like there are some big names, Harry Kane, Mbappe. I'm going to go with Lukaku at Belgium. I think that they've got you know, excellent players in midfield and attacking areas. They're going to score a lot of goals. And he's such a threat. He really is, Romelu Lukaku. I mean, he's scoring goals for fun for Inter Milan. He did it for United. He did it for Everton. He's done it for Chelsea, like his short period at Chelsea, but you know, he's done it for there, and he's done it with Belgium as well. He's already their top goal scorer in their history. And I think again, it's going to be a tournament where I think he will step up, and I think Lukaku will end up top goal scorer.
He's an absolute goal scoring machine, Luke. I definitely agree with you on that. He just does not stop. I personally do not understand why Man United ever got rid of him. You know, the guy just scores goals for fun. Cams, if you're a betting man, if you're going into Betfred tomorrow or Corals, who would you put your money on as the Golden Boot winner of this tournament?
Well, luckily I don't bet, but if I was to, I would probably go for Mbappe. Now, initially, depending on the groups, I would have gone. If I thought England were going to get to the final, I would go with Harry Kane. But I just feel that France will get to the final. France will play more games, more chance for Mbappe to get more goals. Even though they're in a tougher group, England's group are tough for themselves. France's is overall tough. I think everyone would agree. Like England's, you've got Scotland, which is like a derby. Which, if they were in any other group, it wouldn't be. If they were in France's group, they would be seen as a walkover for France. But yes, I will go Mbappe.
I mean, yeah. Well, me and Cams agreed, and Mbappe is just an unbelievable footballer, and you know, it really annoys me when I see people tweeting Mbappe's on his way to Liverpool, and you know, Mbappe wants to come to Liverpool. He's signed by Nike. You know, it's just, if we could have Mbappe at Liverpool, I think we'd have the best team in the world. But no, look, this kid is phenomenal. You know, when we're talking about Neymar and Ronaldo and Messi calling it a day, for me, Mbappe just easily fits the boots. You know, he definitely, you know, puts himself in that category to be the man in football. I think he's a phenomenal player. You know, how old was he a couple of years ago when they won the World Cup? Was he 19, 20? Yeah. You know, he's a brilliant player. I love watching him play. You know, I think he's the number one man at PSG. I don't think Neymar's lived up to expectation there. This kid is what, 21, 22 years old. He's a World Cup winner. All right, he's won the so-called Farmers League a few times and he's played in the Champions League final. Michael Edwards, man, do us all a favour. Throw as much money as you can. You know, sell Mane, sell Firmino, bring them along, because any team that's got Kylian Mbappe is a blessed team.
I think Liverpool could actually buy him if they sold half their team, including the front three.
We're not going to go into this debate, Cams. We cannot.
You can jump. We've got transfer talk on our one. If you want to jump on that podcast.
Count me in. Final question before we bring this to an end, guys. Who wins Euro 2020? I'm going with France. France for me. Yeah. Sorry, Cams, who'd you go for?
Yeah, France. I went with France as well.
Luke?
Full house. I think France win it.
Well, either we're going to be right come July the 11th or we're going to be eating a lot of humble pie. But listen, I'm really excited for it because obviously we didn't enjoy last season. Not just because, you know, Liverpool didn't, you know, achieve much apart from making the top four, but a full year of watching football without the fans, it just wasn't, you know, it was an empty feeling. So we've got reason to be excited and hopefully these Euros deliver. I'm really, really excited for it. But obviously that's all we've got time for on episode 3 of The Phoenix Way. Luke, thank you very much. Where can the viewers find the 1892 Reds podcast on social media? What can we do to help support your platform, mate?
Honestly, lads, what a brilliant show. Thank you very much for letting me come on. Really, really appreciate it. We are on YouTube, the 1892 Reds podcast. Please come and find us. We are a Liverpool-based channel. So, of course, if you're a Liverpool fan, please come and join us. We're nearly at the 200 subscriber mark, so please come and hit the subscribe button over there. And guys, of course, you're definitely going to come on our show at some point soon. So, yeah, thank you very much for letting me come on this show today. And, yeah, let's look forward to the Euros. Come on, England.
No problem, Luke. Pleasure having you on, mate. You'll never walk alone. And listen, I'll be looking forward to seeing some of your posts on Twitter. Cams, not much of a Twitter guy, but, you know, having a great season with the Vets team. I'm there every Sunday watching you. Fingers crossed you can bring home the league title and maybe even the cup. But thank you very much for joining us. Where can people find you on social media, and where can the followers and the fans find the club that you founded on social media?
Well, the club that I founded, I'll let you tell them about that. But yeah, again, thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed it. I think this is the best season Phoenix as a group has had.
100%.
Right? If only Liverpool had the same season as
No, definitely. Listen, Cams, you know, again, massive shout out to, you know, the club that we represent today. You put in all the graft work many, many years ago. And obviously, you know, you've handed the reins over to someone else, but you are definitely Mr. Phoenix, and you're having a great season with the Vets team as well. So good luck to you. Hopefully it's a successful end to you. And to answer Cam's question, our social media links are below in the description. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. And of course, if you're listening to this on the audio platforms, make sure you follow us on Spotify, give us a subscribe on such as Google, iTunes, and of course, Pocket Cast as well. And thank you for listening to episode 3 of The Phoenix Way.